We're having conversations around utterances, especially from the political class. And to have this discussion with us is Dr. Daniel Mutege Giti, who is the CEO NCIC. We are talking about holding leaders accountable for their utterances. Daktari, karibu sana to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you, all of you, for inviting me and the station, and I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, karibu sana. So you are seated on the hot seat, but before we get to the conversation, every week we go to a different African country. So this week we are in Djibouti.
Oh.
And one thing that stands out at Djibouti is they just got out of an election, elected the president for the 6th term. Yeah, they love the man so much, they've elected him for the 6th time. Kitani, they love the president, voted him for the 6th time. So we look at what the country is famous for. So that would be their port. And it's really important for a country of 1.1 million as the population, and they feed into supplies towards Ethiopia. So a former colony of the French, so they speak French. They are largely a Somali-speaking nation, so they have the Somali influence, as well as fact that through intermarriage and where the world is today, there are also Ethiopians in the country that blend together to form the country Djibouti. But the proverb that we get from them today, and these I think would squarely fall onto your doorstep: peace is better than victory. Peace is better than victory. How would you interpret it? What do you think Djiboutians, people of Djibouti, mean by that?
According to me, peace is better than victory, because sometimes when we are trying to prove a point, when we are trying to win maybe an argument or win, some territorial land, for other mega powers, or we are trying to, even in our own ways as Kenyans, maybe we are trying to win over something, or win over a position. Sometimes we may go beyond measures that are required in order to win. So victory, many people look at the victory, but the opposite is that we would win when all of us are peaceful, when all of us are cohesive with each other, than just having the victory without carrying along the entire nation, or the entire tribe, or the entire group, for that matter. So I think peace here becomes very important. Because even now in our Vision 2030 document, peace is praised the same way as infrastructure, as science, technology, and innovation. So it means really peace is the ultimate thing.
And I think that's a good place to be at, because peace is the ultimate development. Peace is the ultimate structure that one needs for the country to move forward. For us to end up at Vision 2030 to achieve that, peace is integral.
Very integral.
But that does not seem to be the story when you talk about the political class in the country, because of the utterances that we hear them speak, because of how they address each other every other day. We speak about the political class who understand exactly what the law says. In defense they say ignorance of the law is no defense.
It's no defense.
Right?
Yes.
And the political class know very well what they should say, what they shouldn't say, and what that would mean to them. Because Constitution 2010 put in place NCIC as an integral independent body because of what utterances did that led us to 1992, that led us to 2007, 2008 post-election violence. And Kenyans said in 2010, enough is enough. We need a body that is NCIC to help us deal with utterances. Is that the case? Many are saying NCIC seems to be very silent.
I beg to differ with the Kenyans who think that NCIC is silent. We know that NCIC was formed as a result of the worst post-election violence that we went through in 2007, 2008, where about 1,400 Kenyans were killed. But it is not only 1,400 Kenyans. It's only that those were the documented ones. And the reason why they were killed was because of the utterances, careless statements, inciting words and terminologies that were used. Therefore, it was deemed necessary under the Agenda 4 Commission, or Agenda 4 items, as we did our mediation, to start a National Cohesion and Integration Commission, which over the years, over 15 years that it has existed, has been trying to address various issues, including the hate speech itself, including ensuring harmonious relationships among us all ethnic groups in Kenya. Remember, we have 45 ethnic groups in Kenya. We have been trying to do a lot of peace and occasion, peace campaigns. During election time, we do a lot of peace caravans with the various stakeholders. We also do a lot of peace and occasion in schools. We have Amani clubs. Although we have not covered all the schools, but we have Amani clubs so that our young people grow knowing the importance of peace. We also conduct research on emerging issues that affect the national cohesion, integration, and peace. Recently, we conducted a thorough study on the emergence of organized criminal gangs, which even the Minister for Interior has alluded to and has spoken passionately about. That Kenyans are eventually or gradually embracing a lot of goons, a lot of Goonism, and a lot of gangs which are terrorizing other political opponents or terrorizing Kenyans.
But Mr. Mutegi, sorry to cut you off.
That's okay.
You see, when you talk about Goonism in the country, we know who's paying the goons. We know who's paying the goons. We know who's contracting the goons.
Yes.
And I'm going to give you an example, and this has to come from the highest office in the land. I'm not saying it's contracting goons, but I remember a situation when the president was in Kawangware, right? We're talking about the head of state.
Yeah.
He was in Kawangware, Naivasha Road.
Yeah.
And after the president left the scene, a few hundred meters as the president was driving away, Kenyans were being attacked by goons from the president's meeting, right? Then you look at during demos, right? Goons working with the police. We're talking about Senator Osotsi the other day has been attacked by goons. And if you listen to conversation that is ongoing, these might have been goons that have been contracted by individuals. We have been told that there are politicians who work with these goons on a daily basis. If you want to fight goons in the country, you know where to go. Why are we not seeing you knock on these doors and tell these politicians, stop the nonsense and have the country run peacefully?
What NCIC is doing is trying to work with the other agencies. Remember, the investigative power. Even one of the reasons why Kenyans don't feel us working very fast as they would want us to be is because when NCIC investigates hate speech case, for example, we have to go to DPP and convince him the office that this crime has been committed. The section 13 of the NCIC Act, which defines hate speech and all that. So when we develop that file and take it to the DPP then will evaluate and see whether it makes sense to proceed to prosecute. Sometimes he returns the case back and then we have to maybe review and make it better. So we don't do investigations ourselves. We have to take to other government agencies. We have to work with the NCIC, for example. We have to work with the DPP and also the National Police Service. Now, we have a request for amendments of the NCIC Act. It is currently before Parliament, for the National Assembly. It's going for third reading, where we want prosecutorial powers, so that if we see that Mutegi has been accused of hate speech, we can take that case ourselves and be able to run with it, because it's one of the metrics upon which Kenyans measure us. Wherever I go, I'm asked, how many people have you convicted? How many people have you... because if I give you the list, for example, we have not been able to prosecute many people because there's a lot of back and forth between the agencies. We also want to do a lot of, in the amendment law, we want to do a lot of multi-agency collaboration between DPP, DCI, EACC, because some of the utterances that the politicians make, are more of incitement, are more of dangerous speech or misinformation or disinformation. So we need a multi-agency entrenched in law to be able to thoroughly follow up these things. So to answer your question, we are not 100% able to hold some of these cylinders accountable, because it is a multi-agency kind of thing. But in the proposed amendments, we want to be given powers now to take it on ourselves.
Okay, Seto, it's not the first time I'm hearing an institution here in the country saying, they don't have the powers and they have to go through the ODPP, because EACC as well says that.
Yeah.
This issue of, having prosecutorial powers,
Yeah.
Why do you need it? Why do you feel most institutions need these prosecutorial powers? Is there a problem from where you sit that needs to be fixed with probably the ODPP? Because if you want prosecutorial powers, then it means you feel probably somewhere there's a weak link somewhere. Something is not happening right, and you feel like if you get the prosecutorial powers that you want, then you'll be able to execute more cases. We'll have probably more convictions. So where do you think is the problem? Where the problem is?
The problem is because you have to rely on another agency whose mandate is so big. The mandate of the DPP is on any prosecution that has to be done in the country as constitutionally. That has to be done through the DPP. Is the Act Office must determine whether that case goes or is not a prosecute. Don't prosecute. So because of that, and because there are many cases also, we have many cases, whether economic crimes, whether civil crimes, whether now hate speech now, like in the last election, 2022, we underworked the judiciary to establish special courts to deal with hate speech cases. We had a court in Mombasa, Nairobi, Nakuru, and Eldoret. But this was on ad hoc basis. Now, what we are saying is that a permanent solution to address the issues of prosecution of hate speech cases. Because the reason why politicians are bold enough to do hate speech cases is because they know before you prosecute them, before you build a file, you go to DPP, the DPP agrees, then get a lawyer. Again, the lawyers, remember even the DPP, the capacity also, there are not many lawyers in that office. But at NCIC, we do have lawyers who can take up the cases without having to rely on the DPP lawyers. So because of the capacity issue at the DPP, because of the many cases at the DPP, because of also the interest around there, again, this may not be their core. Their core is prosecution, but our core is ensuring that people stay without hate speech. They don't propagate that. So if we are given our own prosecutorial powers and we have our own lawyers, we can be able to fast track, can be able to go faster on these cases.
Dr. I'm just wondering, because the by-elections that we just had the other day, we saw politicians being fined by the commission. We saw people being summoned, and even in the past, I believe that you have done well in terms of as a preventive measure. Summoning politicians who are seemingly spewing hate speech out there. But where does the issue lie? Because if you look at the preventive aspects, you summon individuals, you read their names on press, releases, conferences, etc. The same people following month, they are the same ones again, mobilizing and spewing hate speech out there. They get into the political campaigns. We see people, fighting up to levels where actually lives get lost. Then NCIC calls them and, decides that, we are going to fine you. And they actually pay you 1 million shillings, etc. So where do you drive this power to be able to fine, but is limited when it comes to prosecution? And of course, we appreciate that ODPP has the mandate to prosecute. But why do we have these flimsy games of fines, prosecutions that really tend to dent, therefore, both the credibility and even the place of the commission?
I think the fine, it is prescribed very well in the law. That Section 13 of the NCIC Act prescribes a fine of up to 1 million shillings and 1 year imprisonment or both for people who incite violence and who incite Kenyans. But remember, that's why we are saying we need to amend the law, because that 1 million to a politician is not much. It's not punitive. That 1 year is not enough. In the amendment that we have done before Parliament, we are saying that we need to be given powers even to vet political aspirants. So that if you are vying and you have been persistently on hate speech cases, you, as IBC is clearing you, we also say this guy has been on persistent hate speech, so we want him to be disbarred from vying.
But take it, you know, I was in a certain conversation recently, right?
Yes.
And this conversation squarely surrounded the position of ODPP and failure of ODPP to prosecute individuals that have been brought to them from other agencies.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So here's a question where I'll give you an example. EACC investigated an individual. They're not fit to hold office because of the cases against them, right? Goes to IEBC, they're cleared. Why? Because of Article 90 of the Constitution that says what? An individual has room to go through all the appeal mechanisms that do exist.
Until you've exhausted all the
appeal mechanisms. That is the law, right? So you find that because that is in the law, people are taking advantage of that article in the Constitution to continue running. But that notwithstanding, you have investigated your matter. You are convinced this individual, this is a case, right? This individual is supposed to stand trial and be taken to court. You take that to the ODPP, and there is another bureaucracy on what needs to happen. ODPP needs to again look at the matter and consider if this file is good enough to go to court. Yet by the time this matter is coming from NCIC to go to ODPP, NCIC is convinced that this matter should go to court. Therefore, in this chain that you're talking about and appreciating the independence of the ODPP, is therefore ODPP failing NCIC when it comes to prosecuting individuals who have broken the law?
Yeah, that's what we are saying. That's why the agencies are saying. That's why EACC and the NCIC and others are saying that when it comes to prosecuting some of these cases, and that's why Rinders are brought to do hate speech or to do other incitement, because they know the Article 90, you have all their time to appeal. They know now the DPP, before they get all these files, and they are convinced it will take time, and then the court might drag these cases, judiciary also might drag the cases for 5 years, and by the time 5 years is over, this guy is a governor, is any other leader, so therefore they can circumvent the law. So what NCIC is saying in the amendments, and they are before Parliament now, third reading, is let us be given, first of all, the prosecutorial powers, let us also be given the power to vet these political aspirants, even if you have been cleared by the courts or by anybody else, and we now have the ability to, with the IBC, we can refuse you to be cleared. Then also let us also have political, or not political, financial autonomy. You know, sometimes when we are dealing with some of these people and they own the powers, the financial muscle, they can...
they approve your budget.
They can make our budget. Like in the last, what we have been operating in is a lot of challenges, even to be able to even take serious research on this person. So we are saying that once we are given that power to vet, many politicians will fear. When we are given power also to, you know, to remove some of these people from their positions, it will work because the deterrence here is first of all on the people themselves. Remember, my honorable team here, it's Kenyans who crap when politicians are insulting, when they are abusing, when they are degrading or dehumanizing others. So if we are in a rally and we see a politician insulting others or talking vulgar language, because we have seen also an emergence where, especially the female leaders, the female politicians, want to take us back to ages where women, for example, were viewed from the head downwards. And we are saying we want to use Wangari Maathai's words, that let's look at a woman, at a female, from the end upward. Let's look at what is in their hand, not other mundane things.
But Musegi, let me just maintain my my line of thought, right? ODPP is the problem. You've said NCIC has its lawyers, right?
Yes, we have lawyers.
Then what stops your lawyers from working with ODPP to make successful prosecutions, because lawyers within NCIC, if you have a conversation with ODPP, correct me if I'm wrong, they can become prosecutorial lawyers that work together with NCIC to charge this, that work together with ODPP. So what stops you from doing that? Because many would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, if ODPP then does not do their job, yet you have your lawyers, does that make you a toothless dog? You only bark, but you can't bite.
No, not really. We have tried to, in the last 1 year I've been in the office, you remember I've been CEO for the last 1 year, we have tried to engage ODPP to form a multi-agency team between NCIC and ourselves, and we have visited the office of the DPP, and we have agreed that going forward, even as we wait for the amendment to come, let's have our lawyers and their lawyers working on case-by-case basis. But some of these resolutions now that we have made may require the approval of the commissioners, and you recall that last week my commissioners were appointed by His Excellency the President, and therefore once they have vetted and they're in office, because some of these things are policy issues.
They were nominated or appointed?
They were nominated.
Yes.
Then of course they will go to vetting, then they will now, once they are confirmed, the President will appoint them. So when they come now, these are some of the proposals we'll be laying at their table to be able to approve for us, so that now we can officially gazette or officially now formalize that arrangement, where even before the amendment are done, we have a team of lawyers dedicated from NCIC and from ODPP working on this case, because we need to act. Because as we go in the next 14 months, as we go to the general election, if we don't act on these hate speech cases, incitement and other violence and the goons, then our country will not be peaceful.
Bwana CEO, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the commission since its formation in 2008? But majorly looking at the provisions of the Constitution and also the objects that relate to the NCIC Act around its roles and responsibilities, bordering on a number of issues. Remember, you're the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, and we have also had complaints, even up to certain government agencies, where one ethnic community is a dominant resource in terms of human resource employees in certain ministries, certain agencies, even at the county level, that a whole cabinet is speaking one ethnic language, and that there are people there. I know that you have either guidelines or directives on the 3070. Yes, 3070. You can talk to us about that. But looking at all this broad spectrum of things, how would you rate the commission? And where are your highest moments? Which are your mid celebratory moments, and where are your lowest moments? Of course, part of them is that you are a toothless dog. But how do you rate the commission, and how have you performed generally?
How would rate from 2008 or 2009 when the commission started to now? I would give it a 70%.
Wow, 70.
Why? Because you have talked about the ethnic diversity.
Yes.
One of our mandates is to carry out ethnic and diversity audits of government agencies, ministries, departments, and agencies. We have been doing so, and for counties, for example, the last study we did on counties was on 2023, where we realized that only 13 counties comprise the 30-70. That is 70 the dominant ethnic group in that county, 30 the other ethnic groups in the country. It's only 13 coununties comprise that law.
Do you have them offered, like in 2 seconds?
The counties, of course, they are the cosmopolitan ones. The Nairobi, the Kiambu, Machakos, Uasin-Gishu. You know, those are cosmopolitan.
Yeah, so that is a given. Anyway.
But the others, 70, 13 only comprise. 13. Other now 34 don't comprise, which is really alarming. And for these ones that don't comprise, we normally write to them compliance notices. They tell you guys, you have not complied, and we are going to, once we get funds, we're going to do another study now, maybe this year or next year, to confirm whether we have improved. Then we also did it last year, the parastatos and universities, and we are again able to see again there is a challenge in some universities, there is a challenge in some agencies, and again we have written to them in order to meet them on the commissioners on board to be able to tell them, oh, guys, you need to comply. So by doing that standalone, we normally publish this information, and the Kenyans can see which counties or which agencies are obeying. We also do what to call, by the virtue that there's NCIC. You have seen these political leaders, when they want to incite people, they will say, I'm here, let NCIC come and arrest me. By the very virtue that they know there's an NCIC, there's somebody that is monitoring hate speech. That's deterrent by itself, because if it was not there, they would say much more. Number 3, why I'm saying we are successful, we have had peace accords, like 14 peace accords in different counties, like Marsabit. Remember, Marsabit used to be a perennial conflict county. Marsabit, Wajir, Isiolo. Isiolo, even last year, we had to write to the president in order to, read the Riot Act to them. Because it was almost becoming impossible. We had almost 2 governors, 2 speakers, 2 counties, assembly, whatever. They were dividing the county into half. Then remember the work we have done in Narok. To calm the communities there. The work we have done between Kericho and Kisumu at a place called Sondu, where the first ethnic conflict was reported in 1929. This is where the first Kenyan was killed because of ethnic conflict. We have calmed the situation at Sondu, and now we almost last year did a peace monument at Sondu, but because of funds we couldn't do. But we hope this year we can go and do a peace monument there, a peace park where young people from Kericho and Kisumu can meet and interact. We have worked also in Turkana, we have worked in West Pokot, we have worked in Ameru and Tharaka Nithi. I come from Tharaka Nithi. We've calmed the perennial boundary issues in about the 3 counties, which are the boundary issues. Whenever there's a dispute between maybe a town which is contested by 2 counties, we normally come in. So apart from hate speech, where Kenyans might think, and where I think it is our law moment, because of the law again, but we have done a lot of boundary issues, a lot of conflict, a lot of research, a lot of report on the ethnic diversity, which are now taken over by Parliament. And the National Assembly, for example, has been calling different agencies for them to explain why they are not complying on ethnic and diversity. I remember last week it was HELP, Higher Education Loans Board. The other day it was KPA, Kenya Port Authority. So it is because of the work of NCIC that we have, even now, when you see leaders being appointed or nominated, you see there's an attempt to bring all Kenyans together. Even what the president is doing, where Kenyans are being brought together, where you are nominating people from different tribes. It's also a way of, because all this conflict, my honorable team, is because of resources. It's because of opportunities.
Fair enough. The argument or the concern out there by Kenyans is that, most Kenyans, by the way, is that sometimes NCIC acts after a certain faction of the political, side here in the country, puts pressure, piles pressure on you to investigate. Sometimes you'll hear a certain politician saying, probably, within government, most of the time, say NCIC should, investigate or go for a certain politician from the opposition side because he said this and that. And some argue that pressure sometimes, influences the decisions of the commission in investigating these cases. So to what extent does political influence or pressure, political pressure influence, the commission and its decisions on who to investigate and who to,
to walk free?
Exactly.
Let me say that, thank you. Let me say that I've been a CEO for the last 1 year, and at no time, and I'm practicing Christian. I was preaching last Sunday. I can tell you, I have not been called by any higher ranking official of government. I can confirm that I've never been called by anybody in the government to tell me or to tell NCIC or to tell our commissioners not to prosecute this or not to let on go this. So there's no, because we are supposed to be independent. We are supposed to be, when we are doing our work of in hate speech, ethnic diversity, we are independent. No one directs us.
The other concern is that you apply, all this selectively. They say most of the times you go for opposition figures, but when it comes to those in government, you rarely get out of your seat to act.
That's false, because I can tell you the list of the leaders that have been investigated by NCIC across board. they are not from the government, or they are both from government and from the opposition.
Yeah.
Because hate speech is speech. Whether it's government or by not government, then it is hate speech.
Mr. Mutegi, you see, when they want to talk to you, to tell you to toe the line, they will not call you. They will do that through appropriation of budgets to your office. It happens because I remember at a time, and I will recall that time when elections in 2017 were annulled by the judiciary. They were revisited because the next budget cycle, their budgets were slashed. You know what I mean? And this, even as we speak right now, you have a peace monument, Kisumu and Kericho in Sondu, right? You have that is put there. Why is that you're unable to proceed with that?
Budget.
Because of budgets. If they want to talk to you, they will not call you Mr. Mutegi. You are a man of God. So they will speak the truth.
So they will not
they will speak. They will speak, but they will not speak to you the way you expect them to speak. They will speak in other ways.
Actions.
So, which then brings me to the next option, which is the next line of conversation, which is so you want prosecutorial powers. That has to go to Parliament. Right?
Yes.
That has to go to Parliament. You want that at the point when you make a decision that when you flag someone to be have committed a crime, right, is not fit to run for office, is not fit to occupy any public office, right? And that also has to go through Parliament.
Yes.
Now, let me read to you some of the individuals, right, that have been flagged by NCIC of having undergone against that act. You know why I'm saying that?
Yes.
Because I think it's important for us to have this conversation with honesty and reality that there is. So, we have individuals like, in terms of high-profile cases.
High profile.
Rigathi Gachagua has been flagged, right? Oscar Sudi has been flagged. Didmas Baraza has been flagged. Johnson Sakaja has been flagged, right? Raila Odinga was flagged. The late. Junet Mohammed was flagged. Mithika Linturi flagged. Moses Kuria flagged. Aisha Jumwa flagged. What is the common denomination? Political class individuals who sit in Parliament, right? And have decisions. And even if they are not in Parliament, they have influence over those who sit in Parliament. Therefore, is it, let me ask on behalf of Kenyans, is there political goodwill from Parliament to give you prosecutorial powers, to give you the budgets that you need to work in, to work with, to ensure that hate speech, in terms of cohesion down to the grassroots, are done, knowing very well that most of the people who appear on your list is the very same people that you will be taking your proposals to give you these powers?
Let me say that there is some form of political goodwill. And if the political goodwill also is not there, I have a lot of trust in the Kenyans. And remember, Kenyans can push. That's why when I began, I said it is upon Kenyans to push some of these changes, because we cannot keep lamenting all the time. We need to take action. And the action we take is we can write, the Gen Zs introduce something we are calling the greeting the readers, quote unquote. We can ensure we bombard the MPs or the legislators with the need to give NCIC what it is requesting for, so that we can live in a better country. Because the readers may be having a lot of power, a lot of sway, but they can be forced to see a sense. That's what I believe.
Of all the cases that I've just mentioned, all the individuals have been flagged down. What's the progress? Let me take a case in example. Rigathi Gachagua, Oscar Sudi, Didmas Baraza. What's the progress with these individuals when it comes to prosecuting or rather justice to be served? Even Kenyans are asking, let me just ask on behalf of Smoky MC Bandit. So where are the summons for Sudi and Kibet, Cherargei and Cheruyot? Answer. Smoky MC Bandit.
Smoky SMP Bandit is that we have issued summons. We issued summons to all the readers we have mentioned above. And some of them, of course, have not come. They have not come to answer the summons, and the law is very clear. If they don't answer, go to DPP, and we have flagged all these files at the DPP. They are with the DPP, and we are waiting now for them to, because if you don't come, you should be arrested now.
The very same DPP that you're having a problem with.
Exactly.
No, that's what you're saying. We're saying let's give NCIC powers to handle this guy.
Let me ask.
Yes.
You summoned the DCP party leader, Rigathi Gachagua,
yes.
last year.
He
did not appear.
He did not appear.
How many months later? What action have you taken so far in regards to that?
Just going to the DPP and saying this guy now must be arrested.
Just going and saying?
Yeah, because there's nothing else we can do. Remember, I'm saying we have no prosecutorial powers. If we have the prosecutorial powers or the power to arrest, then we can do that.
Daktari, in some quarters, we have had conversations, and including yesterday, you sent 2 officers to County Governance Watch for some study on elections 2027 that you're having. That was Jessica and
Jessica Tieno
and Aurelia.
Yeah, Aurelia Fossa.
Yes. And part of what most Kenyans feel is that this is more or less like a passing on the baton for probably a desire to want to feel safe. But do you think that the DPP is facing challenges because of the definition of terms? For example, hate speech. So when you say hate speech, what is hate speech? I stood at a rally, I said, wewe ni kondo, Is that hate speech? And maybe what must happen for me to appear to come and say that, yes, what I said was hate speech. So hate speech, it leads to incitement. People act. It is them who are acting based on, and they have a choice to fight or not based on what I have said. Do you think, therefore, that the DPP, that part of the challenge that the Commission is facing is based on the context of terminologies of terms like hate speech, incitement? How do you weigh hate speech? How do you weigh incitement?
I can't agree with you more. I totally agree with you. The definition. And that's why we are saying we need the amendment of the law. Because in 2008, when NCIC was being formed, most of the hate speech was happening in the rallies, the political rallies. Now, most of the hate speech is happening online. And it is online now where we want to have the powers now to be able even to bring in the issue of social media. Remember, we have developed the guidelines on social media monitoring. But now, without the act being reviewed to factor in the issues of social media, then some of the cases are lost because of that. They are also lost because of the definition. Because it is hate speech only, but remember, there's a lot of now dangerous speech right away. There's also disinformation and misinformation. All that should also fall within the ambit of NCIC. Because when you, for example, say that ethnic hate speech is where you are giving demeaning statement, you are pitting community vis-a-vis community, you are demeaning people because of their region or because of their gender. And you publish or section 13 of the NCIC Act defines hate speech. But it is very limiting because the world has moved to the social media. So when you go, and we have also to rely on the Communications Authority of Kenya to be able to, interpret the terminologies or the lexicon. They call them the lexicon. Remember, there's a case we took at NCIC of former Governor Waititu, where he had said Wamasai wote waondoke Nairobi. Of course, when he went to court, he said he didn't mean Wamasai. He meant it is now time for people to go. So
Wamasai
ya watu kutoka. He changed. So what you are saying that we need the act amended to be able to even bring a kind of multi-agency team, including Communications Authority, where we have transcribers. You can say a term, a word encouraging, for example, let me use encouraging. Then when we get a transcriber, he or she will tell us this one is not hate speech because this one means this encouraging, and therefore. So some of the cases we have cited the above, I would like to tell you that some of them are not hate speech. Some of them are more of what we call dangerous speech, or some of them are misinformation. Some of them do not fall against on the ambit of NCIC. But then we are saying we need to redefine the scope in the amendments. So that's why the cases are not really going through, because some of them don't become hate speech.
Okay. Now, one would wonder, what if you don't get these prosecutorial powers? Then it means you cannot really undertake your mandate. So why should you have NCIC in place? Why should Kenyans pay you?
Kenyans, I want to urge Kenyans to continue paying and funding NCIC. Because, no, we're not doing that.
Where's value for money?
Yeah, value for money. If you listen to the 14 peace accounts I said, if these peace accounts are not there, we could not be having a peace in Marsabit, for example, that we are enjoying. People now are doing a lot of business in Marsabit. Remember, we cannot also sustain the devolution agenda. But we are not sitting pretty as NCIC to wait until the act is reviewed. We are doing multi-agency collaborations. I just told you that my secretariat has already finalized on various collaboration mechanisms with the agencies involved in the criminal and justice sector to be able to have a gazetted multi-agency team that handles these cases and maybe specializes, having some officers from the Communication Authority, DPP, DCI, NCIC, who are all the time looking at the loopholes of these cases and fixing them, and then preparing the files very fast, and then taking the matter through the DPP for now, before we get the amendment. So we are not sitting pretty. We are doing a lot of public education. On the social media, we are educating our young people and the Kenyans so much. If you go to the social media, we are very active, telling Kenyans how to live peacefully. So if we are not there, then you want to, Kenya will ban. NCIC should remain to be funded even better, because we have been doing a lot of work on the same issues.
Gentlemen, allow me to ask one more question. Mr. Mutegi, the MP, that is Honorable Farah Maalim, did once say that if he was in the president, he would, kill 5,000
people a day.
5,000.
Yeah, agencies.
When your commission summoned him, you said you invited him to shed light on the matter.
Yeah.
See, the language sometimes really matters. Because when you say you invited him to shed light on the matter, yet it is something that is out there. We've seen in fact, he was, stripped off his position in the Wiper Party. There's a resort in Mombasa that declined, to have him at their premises because of those sentiments. When we see other, agencies or even private entities take action on the matter, regardless of, whether they are mandated or not, they're not mandated anyway in the Constitution or so. But NCIC is still, quote unquote, investigating. I mean, what does that say about the Commission? And you can also highlight what is the status of that particular case. Because saying you can murder 5,000 people, kill 5,000 people, I mean, that is sad.
Remember, sir, that what Farah Maalim was saying, if he was a president or he could kill 5,000, really, if you look at it from the article or section 13 of the NCIC Act, doesn't fall within the issue of hate speech. Hate speech, is anything that you pit against community, against region, against tribe, against gender. That's hate speech. Now, that speech was more of what's called dangerous speech. And that's why we are saying we need there's no, that one could only be taken by maybe DCI or maybe by EACC, because it's more leadership. But we are saying now under the amendment, let's also include something like this dangerous speech into the law. Remember, you operate under the law. You cannot do beyond. That's why NCIC cannot prosecute, because the law does not give NCIC the mandate to prosecute. But we are saying we are not sitting pretty. We are saying let us be given power now to investigate or to deal with these cases.
So it's safe to say you only invite leaders to shed light on what they've said, and then from there you can't do much really.
No, that shedding light is trying to understand them and trying to understand whether it's hate speech or it falls within an ambit of another government agency. It's not that we treat them with kiddie groups.
You see, Dr. You now realize how difficult it is to credit NCIC and to basically drive trust among Kenyans that we have a constitutional commission in Chapter 15 that has independent powers, because there are certain powers that we expect that at least the Commission should be able to wield to be able to prevent, deter, and even prosecute. And I'm glad that you have requests through the amendments. But away from the politics, looking at the future. And in the beginning, you mentioned the money clubs. Been very close to my heart if you drive the history of how our money clubs came up. But if you look at some of the conversations around changing the mindset of our young people from schools, how far are we with curriculum development and changes with regards to the role of the citizen from the school level, that we can be patriots. In certain jurisdictions, people love their country. You go to the US. Yes, they have their own challenges, but they will always say, I'm an American, and this is who I am, an American. You go to Singapore, where we are seeking to be taken to. You go to Israel, there are very certain patriotic standards. And I remember that, of course, you and others are trying to do certain things. But at the level of including, of course, having the National Heroes Council that is supposed to also, honor people who are trying to bring in cohesion, integration, peace, etc. But what is the level of success insofar as the curriculum development process is concerned to be able to also spur and patriotism among the young people and also change the mindset of Kenyans as they grow up?
Thank you. We have realized that addressing hate speech, you have to go to the root causes of hate speech or other issues that cause disunity or lack of peace in Kenya. So that's why we launched the Amani clubs or the peace clubs. Just as we used to have the 4K clubs, the debating clubs in the schools, we want to have Amani clubs entrenched even in the curriculum. And next week, we are having a meeting with the Minister of Education officials to be able to come up with a curriculum review that really entrenches these Amani clubs in the schools, so that they also funded and government can be able to, even the education ministry or the schools can fund activities. Like last week, we had a big event in Machakos where schools from 26 counties had gathered to debate disunity, unity over disunity. Youth voices matter. And we from the 4 days that we are there, we realize that young people have a lot of solutions if they are given time, if they are given opportunity. Now, so we are spearheading that curriculum review. Of course, will be approved by the commission. Because remember, the CEO implements what the commissioners do. We are also working with other agencies like the media, what we call the fourth estate, who I did a value, to be able to propagate the issue of being a Kenyan. Mimi ni Kenya. You say when you go to Sweden, the Swiss are very happy about being Swedish.
Being Swiss,
Malaysians, Singaporeans are very happy. So we want to work with other agencies to be able to define and operationalize who is a Mukenya Kamiri, a proper Kenyan. What values are dear to us as Kenyans?
So, but I see you. I want to look at for NCIC to work, right? You can't work alone.
Yes.
You have to work with other agencies for us to say we have, even if it's success in prosecution, there has to be NCIC who pick up the matter, investigate the same. There has to be police as well who are there to arrest, right? There is also DCI in some matters that NCIC would not be able to handle, but you can refer some cases to the DCI. We equally have the justice system that is then in charge of giving judgments and on individuals who've been brought before them. So here is therefore one wants to understand in all these agencies that you work together with, how good is the collaboration, how bad is the collaboration, if any, and what needs to be fixed to ensure that all these agencies don't work in silos when it comes to addressing these matters that we do have. Because if NCIC is working as NCIC, yet you need ODPP and you're not in sync, there's nothing much you'll achieve. If you're not speaking with the police to ensure that arrests are happening, especially for the political, well-connected individuals, there's nowhere else that we are headed. But that notwithstanding as well, we have Kenyans as well who are consuming this information and calling upon Kenyans to stand up and say, Agai, that is hate speech, and we will not sit here to hear you spew these messages. So I'm talking about the overall engagement when it comes to handling all hate speech or things that fall under the ambit of NCIC. How do we improve on these things?
Thank you. What you're saying is that NCIC cannot work alone. We need all the other agencies. And therefore, our collaboration has been, let me say, mixed with all these agencies. But we are saying, going forward, it is my desire as the CEO to work with these agencies to come up with a properly constituted mechanism where we can have quick interventions, quick resolution of issues that come for us. But the biggest collaboration that I'm seeking is from Kenyans. Because Kenyans are the ones who can permit even political leaders to insult. Because if Alinda insult and you are there and you in a rally and you clap or you laugh, then they will think this is fashionable. They will continue spewing hate speech. But if Alinda does as they did in some state, I think in America, where Alinda was inciting others and the citizens just walked away and the Alinda was left alone. Suppose we did that in Kenya, it could heal a lot of challenges. So collaboration with the citizens is the utmost goal.
CEO, briefly, because we are running short of time, one would want to ask the question then, when we talk about matters to do with hate speech, deterrence is key, and it has been raised by one Rosemary Were, that deterrence is key. We don't want to be acting after the fact, that we need to stop these before they actually do occur. So what are kind of conversations that we are having to stop these, as well as address yourself to the emerging problem where hate speech is being spewed in a very fast rate online? How are we addressing that? Because you say you are active online, but we want to deter that before it happens.
And the best deterrence is, first of all, to have people have information, people have knowledge about what causes hate speech, and we know as a commission that resources, the biggest conflict are because of resources and because of opportunities, and therefore we are doing all we can to ensure there are opportunities and there are resources for people to be able to live peacefully and to live in harmony with each other.
Briefly, in a few seconds.
So in the event that the bill is, it doesn't see light of day ahead of 2027, for prosecutorial powers, what are your plans for Kenya elections 2027?
We have done a comprehensive election preparedness plan where we want to envision various scenarios, and we shall be launching this when the commissioners come. And we will be looking at all the scenarios. If we don't have the amendment done, what can we do, including working or coming with the workable solutions or workable arrangement with other government agencies to arrest people and to be able to take action.
Dr. Daniel Mutegi Giti is CEO NCIC, holding our leaders accountable for their utterances, and this has actually thrown the job back to Kenyans, that it is not just about NCIC, not police, not judiciary, but everybody to be part and parcel of finding solutions in hate speech. When you hear a leader spewing hate speech in that meeting, walk out or call them out, because everybody together we will be able to have a country that we deserve. We thank you for being part of Kenya's biggest conversation. Conversation definitely continues.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.